Hey everybody, welcome back. Alright, so in this lesson we're going to take the drums a bit further. We want them to sound nice and lively, and in this track and in the majority of tech house, to be honest, we want it to be fairly minimal. Now when I say minimal, I mean not minimal in the sense that you are only using a hat and a clap and a kick, but minimal in that we only use a few elements and that those elements all work together and don't become cluttered. And you can kind of look at drums like a mini microcosm of mixing as a whole. You want every drum to sort of have its place. If you've got like lots of drums all trying to do the same thing, then it's going to start to get a bit messy and it's not really going to be super clean and super effective. So each and every drum needs to have its own place in the mix. And of course at the moment we've got super basic mix there. So we're going to add some drums using Groove Agent in just a sec, but first I want to use a loop. Again, this is going to be a sample from our House Tools 1 sample pack, which is in the work files. So let's go to our right hand zone, go to the work files, and let's find top loop 53. Okay, so obviously it's a bit of a crazy loop, but we're only going to use like a little bit of it. So I'm going to drag this into our project, just into an empty space. And it's going to ask us what we want to do. So do I want to copy the file to the project location? So I'll just choose to and then click OK. Now we can see here we've got a bit of an issue because the loop has not automatically fitted itself to the bar line. Okay, so this is actually not super common, but it does happen. So good that I can show you what to do. So normally you just come up and click on musical in the info line. As you can see, it just snaps the loop to the grid. If you don't see this info line up here, you can just come up to this gear icon here, not the one all the way on the right hand side, the one next to it. Click on that and then you got the info line here, which you can tick on and off, and then you can turn on or off musical mode. So if that isn't even working and it's still not fitting to the bar lines, the last resort is to select the time stretch tool, which you can either just press 1 on your keyboard twice and you'll see that we got this new cursor with a little clock on, and then if you click and drag it, it'll just stretch out the loop to whatever you select, so you can just snap it to the bar line, for example. To get it to fit, I'll just undo that. You can also select any of those tools from up here, so we'll just select normal sizing again. And there we go, we've got our loop in. Let's just turn that down. So I like 2 bits of that loop actually. I like the first bit, so let's just right click and select our split tool. I'm just going to actually make this a little bit bigger first, zoom in a bit, hide my right hand zone. So I'm just going to select this first bit, snip that off. We're going to keep that, and then we're going to keep this little bit here as well. So that bit there. And then I'm just going to delete the end bit and delete that middle bit. Now very important, I need to add volume fades to these just to make sure that there's no clicks or pops or anything like that. Let's just play it. Then I'm going to highlight them and copy them over so there's 1 to each bar. So it sounds a bit crazy, but we're just going to tweak this a bit because it's all a bit full on. So let's go to our channel settings by clicking the little E, and we're going to filter out. Let's just solo this as well. So let's filter out the low end and some of the highs as well because it's a bit graty. So just going to click on the little number here to select the steepness of the curve. So we're going for a 48 dB curve, and then we can just click here and just drag up to set our filter. So just want to take out the low end. And then let's just click here as well. That activates band 4, or you can just activate band 4 by clicking there as well on the little power button. And that'll automatically be a high shelf to start off with. So I'm just filtering it out. So if we bypass both of these, and I'll just unsolo that as well so you can hear it with the rest of the track. And just turn it right down as well, just to balance it out. Now what I'm going to do actually quickly is just duplicate this track, because I want to have this first hit separate from the second sort of loopy bit. Okay, so I've duplicated it. I'm just going to delete on this first one all of those little hits, the smaller hits, and then I'm going to do the opposite on this track. So I'm going to go through and delete those, so we've got them separated up. Now on this one, because obviously we've duplicated it, if I go into the channel settings, you'll see that we've still got all of this EQ, so I'm just going to reduce the amount of highs that we're taking off there. Turn it up a bit. Just to make this a little bit more prominent, so that's fine, no problem. And let's move on. Now obviously they need some reverb and all that sort of thing on to make them sort of fit a bit better in the mix, but for now that's okay. We're going to get to reverb a bit later on. So the next thing we're going to do is load up Groove Agent. Now I want to show you a little trick that I use to get interesting drum patterns using Groove Agent, or not just interesting but nice and organic drum patterns that you can use in literally any genre, even in tech house. So I'm just going to right click, go add instrument track, and we're going to select in the drums bank, we're going to select Groove Agent SE, add track. And you may have found that just trying to program in your own nice organic great sounding loops is not as easy as you might think it is. So this is like a really great way of basically letting Groove Agent do all of the work of making it sound natural. And it's very simple to do. So we are only going to be looking at pretty much the basic functions in Groove Agent. We're not going to go into massive amounts of detail. So if you do want a more rounded understanding of this instrument, then definitely check out the Groove Agent SE course that Jay has made that covers all of the in-depth knowledge you need to get the most out of this, what is actually a complete beast of a drum machine. So Groove Agent comes with tons of kits. Let's just click on where it says Kit 1 here to load up the browser window. And there we go. And of course, there's absolutely tons of different kits to pick from, even in the free version of this, which comes with Cubase, LE, and AI. There's still loads of different kits you can choose. And all of these kits come with many different patterns, all custom made. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically sort of use parts of those patterns to make natural sounding drum loops for our own track. So the kit that I want to use in this case is called Add Ein Tron, so double click on that to load it and you'll see it load. Now we can close our browser window. Let's just turn down Groove Agent a bit before we go any further. And you can see on all of the pads, we've got all of the sort of drum hits that make up this kit. And then in the patterns bank over here, if we click on that, we've got all of the different patterns which come with this kit particularly. So if you just click and hold, so the one I particularly like in this kit, which kind of works nicely with the rest of the track. In fact, I'll just play the track and then I'll play the loop over the top. So as you can hear, it's a very sort of organically played pattern. It sounds quite natural. Now, the sound itself is not correct at all, but the pattern is what we're after here. So what we want to do is drag this tom pattern into our arrangement. So I'm just going to literally click and drag on it and drop that on our Groove Agent track. And then obviously that's it playing in the project now. So let's just close Groove Agent for a second, and I'm going to go into the MIDI of this sort of tom pattern. And one of the great things about using pre-made sort of Groove Agent patterns is that it comes with all this nice velocity information. This is really what makes it sound organic and like it's being played on its own. If I just solo this tom pattern for now. You can just hear it just sounds nice and organic. What you can do, if you want to change the sort of balance of volume of these hits, or velocity I should say, you can actually just select all of them, and then if you come down to the lower zone, this is the lower zone in the MIDI editor window, and then again if we highlight all of our MIDI, then we can come down here and we see in the middle we've got a scale velocity button. So if I click that and drag it up, you can actually change the sort of balance of all of these together, so you can get them sounding like closer together or all a bit louder or whatever it is that you want. If the volume variation was a bit too much anyway, so you can change that. I'm just going to undo that because I actually liked it how it was. But again, it's the sound itself is just not really working. It's a bit too boomy and a bit too sort of almost actually a bit too natural sounding, that tom, for a tech house track. So I want to replace it with something else. So what I'm going to do is just note at the moment the key that the tom is in, which is A1. If I zoom in, we should see that on the note name there. And by the way, if you're not seeing the note name, you need to zoom in vertically. So you use this little slider here, and you can see as I zoom in, the note name disappears, and as I zoom out, the note name appears again. Okay, so this is on A1. Obviously all the other drums are on the other keys, but we're just using this particular one at the moment. So A1, let's remember that and go into Groove Agent again. So let's just click on Edit Instrument. And when we go to the Instrument tab, we'll find A1. So that's the tom that's playing at the moment. Now what we're going to do is replace this. So let's just open up our right hand zone and find BTP HT1 Perk 13, which is that nice little sound. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to click on it and drag it over to the tom pad, and when we drop it on, we've got three different options. We actually just want the middle one, okay, so where you've got the two squares with the arrow in between, drop it on that, and you'll see that we now got our new percussive sound instead of the tom sound. Okay, cool, so let's just play that. Okay, so it's just a little bit loud, so let's just turn it down a bit. So it sounds a bit more tech housey, very nice, but it's just a little bit odd because it's got this really long sort of fade in, so it sounds almost like a little bit delayed. Not terribly, but a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change the start point of where the sample is played from, which is done with this little S button in yellow or orange. You can just move that forwards. And a quick tip, whenever you do this, you also want to change the fade in length. So you see just above where the S is, there's a little white block, click on that and then drag it in, and obviously you can change the fade of the sample. Now, this is just to stop any sort of nasty clicks or pops. Now let's have a listen. Okay, so that's much better, it's much tighter than it was. You can obviously play around with it, and in some certain circumstances of tech house, you can actually sort of play with the timings and have something a little bit off. Can actually work quite well. In this track I don't think that's going to work, but you can try that. Okay, so let's come out of Groove Agent. We've got our nice sort of bongo loop. So sounding all right, but I think we can definitely make this a little bit more interesting. So let's go into the channel settings for Groove Agent. So even though it's got that velocity information and it's sounding, you know, nice and sort of organically played, I think we can just make this, like I say, a bit more interesting. So let's add an auto pan first of all. So go to our inserts, a blank insert, go to modulation and select auto pan. So in its stock sort of settings, this is going to be a bit too much. So the first thing we want to do is just change the width really, so it's not actually as sort of panning it as hard left and hard right. So that's still pretty decent, and we just want to slow that down. I think we don't really want it too quick. Somewhere like that seems pretty decent. And that's pretty much all we want to do. You can, of course, change the type of oscillator that the auto pan follows. So you can change it to triangle or even square. But I think just this nice sort of gentle curve is the best for this. So that's fine. We don't need to change anything else there. Let's come out of that. So I do like how that sounds, but I also do find that the auto pan, I don't know, I'm not sure whether it's the sort of linear response of it that makes it seem like a bit obvious. So I found a little trick that kind of works, and that's to add a stereo enhancer after the auto pan. I'll kind of get to this a bit in a sec, but let's just add the stereo panner. So that's under spatial and panner, and then go to stereo enhancer, and that's that. In a sense, by adding a stereo enhancer and then cranking up the width to 200%, effectively you're kind of like increasing the width of the auto pan, but it sounds to my ears like a slightly more natural way of doing it than just turning up the width of the auto pan. It's a kind of bizarre thing to say, but because this uses like phase to actually push things and make them wider, it has a slightly different effect than just turning up the width on the auto pan. And I find it just a little bit more appealing. So let's just have a listen. I'm just going to turn it off. So even if I turn up the width here, it just sounds a bit unnatural the way it pans it, which is kind of a strange thing to say, but it does. And then I turn it down and add the stereo enhancer. And I just think that's got a nicer kind of modulating effect to it using the stereo enhancer. Bit of an odd one, but it's something I just sort of came across and experimented with and found that, and it actually works better than just an auto pan on its own. So adding a stereo enhancer after the auto pan. Okay, and now let's just do the last sort of tweaks to this. So as you can see, we've got a little bit of low end in here, which we don't really want. So let's just change our filter slope to 48 dB, and then we're just going to take out that low end. Anything really below sort of like 200 hertz-ish is absolutely fine. And then let's just brighten it up a little bit. So again, just going to activate band 4. Maybe take out a little bit more actually. Okay, so something like that sounded pretty good. Just giving it a little bit more brightness, and I think that's pretty good. Obviously we need to add reverb to this as well, but that's fine, no problem for now. Let's unsolo that and have a listen to it in our track. I might even just turn the auto pan down a little bit. Okay, so that's good, just a couple of minor little tweaks there, and that is sounding pretty decent. So now we have all of that set up, we're going to just actually have this exactly the same pattern and instrument, but we're going to change it again and put a hat sample in there. So we've got like this pattern but being played with a hat. So all we got to do is right click the Groove Agent track, go duplicate tracks, and then before we go any further, let's just rename this. So Groove Agent hat, Shift and enter, and then we'll just mute our other one for now so we can only hear this one. Obviously it's the same at the moment, just playing the same bongo pattern. So let's go into Groove Agent and find our tom. So make sure we got this pad selected, and then we're going to find hat 37 right at the top there. It's this little short thing, and we're going to drag that and stick it on our pad. And remember, again, in the middle part where you got two boxes and an arrow in between, drop it on there. And then when I play it, oops, let's just turn that right down. So it sounds a little bit odd at the moment, so let's just shorten this a bit. So we're going to change the sample end by clicking on the S at the end of the sample there, just dragging that in a bit, and then adding a volume fade as well. So that's sounding all right, not too bad. Let's just come out of Groove Agent for now and go into the channel settings. I don't think we're going to want the stereo enhancer on this, so I'm just going to bypass that for now. Okay, so that sounded pretty good for now, no problem. Let's just leave that as it is. So it's not supposed to be taking anything away from the existing hat in our track. It's just supposed to be sort of adding to the rhythm of that. I think it's doing a fairly good job. We might need to just change the balance of volume levels, but that's fine for now. So just a very quick bit of housekeeping. I'm just going to drag my sort of loop chops down the bottom there. And in fact, I'm just going to color them by holding Alt or Option, clicking on the colored area, change that to yellow because this is a drum. Do the same with that. And in fact, let's just stick them up with our drums. That makes more sense. And then Groove Agent, this first one, let's just rename this Bongo, Shift and Enter. And then that's all labeled up. And also let's just change the color of these because sort of pink is going to be my color for like bass lines and like lead sounds and stuff. So I want, and these are drums, so let's just color it so it's something similar to yellow, maybe not yellow exactly because we want to differentiate the fact that it is a different instrument. It's Groove Agent, not just an audio sample. So I'm just going to color them sort of same color as the kick just to make it a little bit different. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Thank you very much for watching. In the next lesson, we're going to actually look at synthesis and we're going to start getting ready to make our all-important bass sound. Thanks very much for watching, guys and girls.